Never read the comments.
We had a really fun discussion on Take Command about who are the top developmental pieces for the Commanders. And Logan and I talked it through, and I think we kind of decided, like, Jaden has graduated out of the developmental stage. Sainer still, with how well he played last year and how important he is. Like, he's kind of at a different level. But that got a lot of, the guys that we did name had a lot of different interesting responses. This one from Coup de Fort, at least that's how I'm going with the French pronunciation, I70 says, Newton, as in Jerzon Newton, was a great pick. They were lucky to get him. He was an outstanding rusher in college, playing in a conference known for great defensive linemen. Anyone who has written him off is a total moron. The comments are always very light, Ben. Total moron. Did Chris Russell write this? Anyway, he had a serious injury. He lost important developmental time in camp. Look at how he started to show good performance in the second half of the season. Rookies need time to develop. Opinions are worthless unless they are rooted in facts. This is a good video. Yay, we did it. Hopefully, the coaches will make sure McCaffrey and Sinnott will have reasonable opportunities to develop this year. They need more targets than last year. And what I would say is, first of all, thank you for the kind words, and thank you for agreeing with us that Johnny Newton has a huge potential, because the point that Logan and I made was that, like, he is the top of the list in part because we think he has the highest upside. Him and obviously the first rounder from this year, Josh Connerly. It's like, man, those guys could be real stars. Those guys could turn into top 5 at their position type players. They have the attributes, the characteristics to do that if they reach their potential. With Connerly, I think it's a bigger question, because he needs to change his body a little bit, needs to get a lot stronger, but he has the frame to do it, and there's a lot of projection there. With Newton, it is consistency and health, and he's got kind of the build and everything, the quickness to be able to do that. So if he can just get a little bit stronger, as he will just as he gets older and obviously lifts weights more in the league, and then understands leverage and all that, I think Jerzon Newton could be a really, really high-level disruptive player. When it comes to guys like McCaffrey and Sinnott, the idea that they need to be given more opportunities, that is where I disagree. They need to earn more opportunities. And if they have the springs that they had, they'll be perfectly fine. And in that mix, Sinnott was making some plays. Not a ton. He was also banged up a little bit. He was wearing the black injury jersey for much of camp in the spring. But, like, who cares? There's not a lot of contact anyway. McCaffrey was all over the place making plays, and he just looked a lot faster. So if those guys do that, what they need to do on those fronts, they do hard work on the practice field. They do the extra work on the practice field after the organized stuff. They're in the meeting rooms, being participatory, asking smart questions. They're taking care of their bodies, and they just do their jobs at a high level. They'll get more opportunities. But I think we talk about this a lot with the developmental guys, this is why they're later picks. If they were home runs, they would have been first-round picks. In Sinnott's case, you're hoping it happens pretty quick because he's a second-round pick. But Sinnott was a guy that was taken based off of what his upside could be, not based off his readiness. Some second-round picks, they have a lower upside, high readiness. Some have high upside, low readiness. That is where Sinnott falls. McCaffrey has a lower upside, and I think because of his pedigree, people thought he had a pretty high readiness, but that's not who he is. Like, Luke is a guy that was playing quarterback at Nebraska like 3-4 years ago. He's a learning receiver, nevertheless learning receiver in the NFL. He kind of gets drafted based off his upside, not based off his readiness. They know the work ethic, they know the person, they know the athletic profile, but he needed to learn a lot. It looks like he has, and hopefully he can be a bigger factor here in year 2 as well. As for Sinnott, this one from Major Bolden 8589. WTF, good thing I remembered to abbreviate that because we're licensed by the FCC, and I don't feel like getting thrown off the air today. WTF for these comments. Ben's going to take a big step on the field. I really want to see what McGee and Owens could be on our defense. I don't know if Luke had any nepotism. He comes from a football family. The pedigree and competitive culture is there. I think he's going to be a great number 4. I think, again, Luke McCaffrey, if he's a number 4, like a consistent number 4, makes plays when asked, and because the thing is with the number 4 receiver, you're rotating in. You're not just out there in 4 wide receiver sets. You're playing the X sometimes. So you might be replacing Terry on some plays. You're replacing Debo as a Z on some plays as an outside guy, or you're playing in complement to Debo when he's inside some. Not as much as the third guy on the depth chart necessarily, and that would be probably Noah Brown, but you are in that rotation in the 4th heaviest number of snaps. So you're playing. Maybe he earns more than that. And I think if he's a 4 this year and a good special teams player, and he's up to a 3 and hopefully a starter by the time he's in year 4, like a number 2 type of guy, like that's a great late 3rd round pick. And I think that's the other thing too, is you got to remember where these guys are drafted is going to be some level predictive of how well they are. There's always exceptions, and you always want positive exceptions. But it is something to consider, which I think is also relevant for McGee and Owens. Like, Tyler Owens is an undrafted free agent. If all he ever is a dope special teams player who is really impactful, that's a great UDFA because he stayed in the league. Those guys aren't supposed to make it. Nevertheless, if he develops into something defensively, which we'll see, he had a decent preseason last year, but mostly against guys who were no longer in the league once final roster cuts were made. McGee is the one that I think holds the key. If Jordan McGee can develop into a starter, and he can prove that here in year 2 after missing most of year 1 injured or banged up, then you feel a lot better about what happens post Bobby Wagner. If not, you got to figure that out. Because while they have some other guys, the Kane Madranos, the Dominique Hamptons, they're developing in that linebacker spot. It's really McGee who is not only is he the backup Mike already in terms of depth, he's hopefully your guy for the future. And I think his ceiling is pretty good. Last one on the football side of things. This was a fun question. So we did our coach rankings on today's edition of Take Command. So in your feed right now, if you have not refreshed it since this morning, brand new episode of Take Command where we rank all of the coaches. We did our position group rankings last week on top of our mailbags that we've been doing. But we ranked the head coaches, then the OCs, then the DCs. And Carrot, spelled with a K, Carrot Man says, "Hey, Craig, any thoughts on throwing GMs into the coaches ranking pod?" To be honest, Carrot Man, no, we didn't have that thought. But I like it. And so I'm going to do it here and never read the comments. I think it depends on how you want to count the general manager of the Dallas Cowboys. And I'll explain that in a second. If you count it as Jerry Jones and all that is Jerry Jones, he's 4th. Like, even Joe Shane, I think some of the stuff Joe Shane has done has been much maligned, but actually wasn't the worst decision. And I think that he's had a couple of nice hits. Tyrone Tracy last year. Obviously, Neighbors is a stud. I like some of the things they did this year in the draft and what they did in free agency. Like, the overall plan, I got real questions about. I'm not saying Joe Shane is a good GM or has done a good job as GM, but you compare that to the incredible self-sabotage of Jerry Jones, and I think you rank Shane 3rd. Obviously, Howie Roseman is 1st, and then Adam Peters is 2nd. If you want to say the general manager, if you want to put more of a scouting edge on this and say, okay, we're going to take out Jerry Jones's complete mismanagement of resources, the trades he makes, the incredible ability to screw up his own contracts extension-wise. We did it with Dak. He did it with CD. He's doing it right now with Micah Parsons. And you want to consider for this exercise to have a more interesting discussion, the general manager, in air quotes, to be Will McClay, the Cowboys director of personnel, who runs their draft every single year. Then I think you're talking about the Cowboys and McClay being 2nd. He has been awesome for a long time. And while I like so much of what Adam has done, the consistent success that McClay has had, I think you have to give it to him over Peters, in part because the resume is just longer. And it's just as good, if not better, even if you were to just go on averages. Like, his hit rate in the draft is crazy. The problem is that when those guys come up, his hits come up for second contracts, the Cowboys mismanage the asset time and time again. And obviously, Jerry adds a lot of distraction to the team. That has been a thing. The coaching hires have been questionable at best. And so I think if you look at, like, Howie obviously has the best roster in football. They've done a good job with the coaching hires. And anything else that a GM's got to do, Howie Roseman is basically crushed. Their cap situation is really good. It helps that they have an owner who is willing to pay a ton up front in cash. Adam Peters, I think, is second if you take the totality of it. Third, Shane. And then fourth, Jerry Jones and the Cowboys. So there's my NFC East GM rankings, shrunk down into a never read the comments bite size versus a full Take Command episode length. Ben, any nits to pick with my rankings there?
I think you hit it there. Obviously, Adam Peters has to be 2 at the moment. It's way too early. And then you have the GM of Howie Roseman, who just won the Super Bowl and has continued to seemingly fleece everyone in the NFL at the same time. So no problems there. I guess maybe the only thing people would question with you is putting Jones at 4 instead of 3, given what New York's situation is like. But Jerry Jones is one of the worst GMs in football right now.
It's just hard to separate, like, owner Jerry from, because, like, if there was someone else going to the owner being like, hey man, can we pay this guy? And the owner was like, no, would you put that on the GM? When it's the same guy, you kind of just do. And so if you want to put New York 4th, I'm not going to fight you. Joe Shane has had a rough go of it. But I also feel like he's been dealt a pretty bad hand at times. And some of that was stuff he inherited. So and obviously Hard Knocks and the way the Saquon stuff went down just soured everybody on him. But I actually also, again, I've said this a million times, I don't think that was the wrong move for the Giants necessarily, because a good running back is ice cream or even toppings on top of a sundae, and the Giants don't have bowls.
What's up, kiddos? It's your boy Clinton Yates from ESPN. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980. Tell your mama I said what's up.